Thank you. Tavachaka kilana stutirambike sakala shabdamai kilate tanu nikhila murtishu me bhavadanvayo manasija subahi prasara sucha. Mother, how can I praise you as every single word is your prayer and every single form is your body? This is the vision that Abhinavagupta had. Now, of course, we are discussing Soundaryalaharī. This Soundaryalaharī itself is the body of Mother Tripurāsundarī. And there is this deeper aspect of Soundaryalaharī wherein the aesthetics joins philosophy, and that joins the tantric practices, esoteric tantricism. And I would like to share a little bit of my own engagement with Soundaryalaharī with the learned audience today. And thank you for providing this opportunity. There is this understanding among the common layman that the words you can let go of. There is this meaning, realization, understanding. That is what matters. Ultimately, these books, the words, they are not real. This comes from a dualism of the manifest and the unmanifest, considering the manifest as unreal and something unmanifest to be real. The body is unreal, the soul is real, and the material world is unreal in light of something absolute. Sri Sundari Sevana Tatparadam Bhogascha Mokshascha Karastha Eva. You all know this verse by heart, that this Soundaryalaharī, the text on Tripurāsundarī, is not just for moksha, not just for liberation. It is also for enjoying our presence in the world. Sometimes we focus so much of the other world that we miss the beauty of this world. And when missing the beauty of this world, we also miss the beauty of the absolute, because there is a continuum. This is the Shakta philosophy. I'm reading Soundaryalaharī in front of you as a very much a Shakta philosophy text. And for that, I'm proposing that reading, understanding the meaning alone may never be sufficient. There are two types of texts in Bharatiya literature. One is called Shastras, like Nyaya, Vedanta, these are Shastras. And another are Kavyas, like Kalidasas, Banas. There are very few texts actually in the entire Bharatiya Parampara that fit the definition of both Kavya and Shastra. That on one hand have this poetic prowess, excellence in poetry. On the other hand, the same functioning of the Shastra. And this is what Soundaryalaharī is for both as Kavya and as Shastra. And therefore, if you are only reading the book, admiring the beauty, there is still this as works as a Kavya. If you understand the deeper meaning of this text, works as a Shastra. But then we may be missing something. I go again and again. There are very few books that we can read every day and find something new. I found this Soundaryalaharī to be one of those books that every time I go back, I see something new. Because this is both Kavya and Shastra. So in Kavya Shastras, they have laid out a threefold meaning. Avida, a literal meaning, Lakshana, what is implied, and then there is Dhvani, suggestion. What I propose here is reading Soundaryalaharī, one needs to know even beyond this Avida, Lakshana, Vyanjana, and also go to Vakrokti. Kuntaka, there was one eminent aesthete named Kuntaka who just proposed Vakrokti. Vakrokti Kavya Jivitam, the soul of Kavya, poetry is Vakrokti, in direct suggestion. We all know Tantra Shastra does not like to have everything explicit. They love this esotericism, Gopyata. And Soundaryalaharī meticulously preserves this esoteric side of tantric tradition while explaining the beauty of the goddess and composing these devotional hymns. What we find here is in every verse, there is something else being hinted at. There is something else being suggested. And we need to understand, to read a text like Soundaryalaharī, we need to be very tender. And we need to acknowledge the whole body. It's like a beautiful woman. Sometimes this metaphor goes bad way, because I was giving a presentation on Soundaryalaharī in American Academy of Religion, and the respondent said, oh, this is just a perverted mind of the Indians talking about women body. You know, there are very many people who do not bother reading the text or even listening to the speaker and make their judgments about some issues that fits to their own projection, let us say. But for us who are Sahridaya, so therefore, first of all, you have to be Sahridaya, have that same heart, a sort of intersubjective space in which we can communicate something as deep as Soundaryalaharī and appreciate the beauty of Kavya while also acknowledging the depth of Shastra. In the Kavya Shastra, the first is alamkaras, these ornamentation. There are two types of alamkaras, these sabda, only by choosing particular words that resonate and rhyme. And then there is the artha alankara, the suggested meaning by means of which the poetry becomes ornamented, beautiful. Then deeper than that is Rasa Shastra. And there's extensive writing on Rasa. I will not go there, but in particular, as you can see, Soundaryalaharī itself is an epitome of Śrīngara, the beauty. But even in Śrīngara, this love to the mother, there are all the other subsidiary side rasas here, a mixture of rasas. It's like when you have some dishes that have different flavors added, and then while one thing is main flavor, but there are other, that's how you mix the spices. So there are some hasya rasas, naram barshi yamsam, nayana virasam, dharma sujagam, and then ultimately going to Saundarya, of course. So ultimately this leads to Dhvani. Kavyasya atma dhvani riti buddha. Buddhaihi yah samamnata purva. The soul of Kavya, poetry, is dhvani, the suggested meaning. And if we do not engage this whole dhvani system, we fail to go deeper into what is being suggested. We have to, if you want to read Soundaryalaharī, rather than saying, I know this book, it's beautiful, I have translated all, just ask endlessly, how can I know more from this verse? It's like the the type of cow who can constantly keep giving milk. So there's a kamadhen. It's so this is like a wish-fulfilling tree that you constantly keep digging something, like picking some fruits, and it keeps giving something new. For pratiyamanam punaranya deva vastasti vanishu mahakavinam. Because poets are such that what they express is something beyond what appears. Like beauty. Beauty is not just the garbs. Beauty is not the chin or the eyes. Beauty is the sum total and something more than what we can decipher in what is expressed. So the Soundaryalaharī has all these aspects to compose this as a beautiful text of aesthetics. Why this aesthetic aspect I'm highlighting is, as I said before, people have, general laymen have this understanding that if they are trying to, go to some spiritual understanding, self-realization, then this body of the text, the beauty expressed, is not necessary. These are just words. And that is not where you can be a Upāsaka of Tripurāsundarī, because she is not just a Tripura, of course she is also Tripura, but she is also Tripurāsundarī. So there is the Saundarya, the beauty that is required. So this Soundaryalaharī is written to somehow match the beauty of Tripurāsundarī in the divine form, in the loka, in the world. This kavya is supposed to bring to light the beauty the poetry can give. But what about the Shastra? To what extent we can consider this a Shastra? In itself, verse 31, it is said, Chatushastya tantrai shakalamati sandhaya bhuvanam swatantram te tantram chititalam avati taradidam. So, prasava paratantrai pashupatihi. So, this is why it says that Pashupati, Lord Shiva himself manifests this after having all these siddhis expressed in 64 agamas. This places Soundaryalaharī, Ānandalaharī, placed itself as the 65th agama. So this is why it is already claiming to be a Shastra, and therefore it is for both, for bhoga and for also moksha. So for all of you, I'm not going to recite the verses because you have been reciting this every day, but I'll just give some examples. Shiva Shaktya Yukto, everybody knows this first verse, of course. Shiva Shak, how many meanings do we want to see from this verse? There are so many commentaries, and every commentary brings a new dimension to the text. There are many unedited commentaries also available in the libraries and from classical times, of course. But the most important thing is, when we read the text like Shiva Shaktya Yukto Yadi Bhavati Shaktaha Prabhavitum, we have this literal meaning of the primacy of Shakti because it's a Shakta text. But then we also go to what type of alamkara we can find here. So Atishayokti, it is the exaggeration of the goddess because she goes beyond Shiva. But then what is Dhvanita? What is the deeper suggestion here? That is where we start actually doing a research. The deeper suggestion here would be the union, an eternal union of Prakasha and Vimarsha. Because Shiva is Prakasha, Prakasha Sarvaranagyaha, Ācārya. So Ācārya is the Prakasha Shiva, and Shakti, Ācārya, Vimarsha, and Aham, this I am, I consciousness, is the union of Shiva and Shakti. That is where we have this Aham, I am. this I consciousness, my very self-awareness, in this sense is never deprived of either. That there is always Shiva as illumination and Shakti as reflection, vimarsha. That is why Jnanam, Swaprakasham. So this is why the consciousness is always reflexive, and consciousness is always given to itself, that I am aware of my being, I'm aware of my presence, and Shiva Shaktya Yukta. So this is how it allows me, Adi Bhavati Shaktaha Prabhavitum. So this is not assuming the functioning outside of this very consciousness, that it is within the Shiva Shakti that there is this potency to act, and therefore there's an active causality in that absolute pure consciousness itself, that it does not need to rely on some secondary adjunct. And the world explained here becomes very much in the Shakta philosophy, in accordance with the Shakta philosophy, that this is the very expression of Shiva and Shakti. So this Shiva Shakti form in indivisible, inseparable form is only derived when we engage the meaning of dhvani. Another example we can give, Tani yamsum pamsum tavacharana panke ruha bhavam virinchi sanchinnan virajayati loka navikalam. Of course, you know the literal meaning, but Tava charana panke ruha bhavam. First of all, we have to see what type of suggestion is here, and we need to go that first it is done with the alankara of utpreksha, because in what is being compared, the aspects of the entity being compared is imposed on. If the feet of the goddess is compared to the lotus, what do we find in the lotus? Pollen. So now the poet wants to see the pollen on the feet of the goddess, because it's the lotus. Therefore, lotus should have the pollen. And how he explains the coming of the world is Taniyamsam pamsum tava charana panke ruha bhavam virinchi sanchinvan virachayati lokan avikalam. So this very palm soil, dirt, now pollen, is what Lord Brahma uses to create the world. And this is what Lord Shiva puts in his body as ashes at the end. The idea is that where does this world come from? If it is just pure consciousness, why is there jadata? These things we can engage only when we read this kavya as a suggestion, as a dhvani kavya, that this pollen at the feet of the goddess is what is used as the raw material, as the primary source for Brahma to create the world, meaning that it is not separated from the presence of the goddess. And so always, if you read the Devi Mahatmyam and Vishnu Karna Malad Bhutau, so where does this evil demons come from? From the Vishnu, the ear wax, they come from. There's always in this non-dual world, we get sometimes this problem. People ask like, where does this negativity, evil, darkness, where does that come from? It's included within that. It is within the very body that is present there. And so we find more of the same everywhere. In every verse we read, Tadanyaha pani bhyam avaya varado daivata ganaha tameka naivasi prakatita varavitya vinaya. What do we find here? So the literal meaning, yes, you do not display the gestures of boons and fearlessness because your feet are sufficient to do that. That's a literal reading. What is the suggested meaning of the text? What is hinted at? Now, this is talking about the story of the tapas that Sri Lakshmi did to please Mother Tripurāsundarī, and she gave her this power of Vara and Abhaya so that Lakshmi can bestow grace upon us by the grace of Mother Tripurāsundarī. So these suggested meanings are not visible as long as we are not willing to see that. But then sometimes the poetry overtakes, and then the meaning, what is suggested, gets overlooked. Dhanuhu, Paushmam Maurvi, Madhukaramayi, Panchavishikha, Vasantaha Samanto, Malaya Marud Ayo Dhanarathaha, Tatha Pekaha Sarvam, Himagiri Sute, Kam Apikripam, Apangate Labdha, Jagadida Manango Vijayate. There is also Vakrokti here, but most importantly, there is a Guni Bhuta Vyangya. That is why this is a technical thing for the Rasa Shastra. But in a simple terms, this is the Kamadeva. How does Kamadeva conquer the entire world? Because he's a devotee of Kameshwari, Mother Tripurāsundarī. And how does it work? What the other name of Kamadeva is Ananga, one who doesn't even have the body. One without the body, look at the way he goes. Nanuhu Paushpam, he makes the bow made out of flowers. Maurvi Madhukaramai, bow strings made of the beads. And Pancha Vishikha, he got 5 arrows. Poor 5 arrows made of flowers, worthless in a real battle. Vasantaha Samanta, and he has this commander is the spring season, number 1 time, and number 2, they are helpless in the battle. Particularly Vasanta, spring, is not when you like to go quarrel and fight. Vasanta, Malaya Marut Ayodhana Rathaha. So the chariot is the Malaya, the airs coming from the Malayas. These are transitory airs and a gentle breeze. They cannot carry you much further. And even then, Tathapi Ekaha Sarvam Himagiri Sute. And then what is he? He's just only one. Even with this, all the associates, he's just alone. This Kama, this Cupid, is all alone. Apangate Lagda, by the glance of the goddess, she is not even gracing him by coming to his company. Okay, I'm on your side, I'll fight with you. No, she just gave him a glance. And just with a single glance of the goddess, he's capable of defeating the entire world. So this is the way the poetry is woven here. But what is suggested there? Kamaraja Vidya, Kadi Vidya, is suggested here, of course, because if you know Lopamudra and Kamaraja are the primary upasakas of the mother. And if you do not know the connection of Kamaraja with the Kadi Vidya within Tripurāsundarī tradition, then you may be missing out. And you can still admire the beauty of Kavya, but then you'll fail to recognize what is deep depth in the side of the sadhana. Drisha dragi yasya dara dalita nilot palarucha daviyam samdinam snapaya kripaya mama pishive. It's like with your long gaze, mother, just to cast one side just for a moment, just look at me. And Anena, I am dhanya bhavati. I would be so glorified. Nachate hani ita, and at the end, you have nothing to lose. Hey, come on. It's like there is a vakrokti you can see. But then again, what is this drishti? Again, we need to go to the dhvani, the suggested meaning. Why is it necessary to again and again in every single verse that one has to go to a deeper suggested meaning? I know I will not take too long of your time. Is it because in Tantra Shastra, भावार्थः संप्रदायार्थो निगर्भार्थश्च कौलिकः तथा सर्वरहस्यार्थो महातत्त्वार्थ एव च. In the Yogini Hridayam, there are mentioned like sixfold meaning, and in Varivasya, Bhaskara Raya goes even beyond that, deciphering 16-fold meaning. And these tantric meanings are not derived in negation of the literal. There are these literal meanings there, and there always texts have deeper and deeper and deeper meanings that we need to keep digging and digging further. So the text, I just would like to share some of the esoteric aspects, tantric aspects of the text. That first of all, if you look into the chakra system, Mahim Muladhare Kamapi Manipure Hutavaham, or the text itself is Soundaryalaharī, Ānandalaharī itself is, I think, one of the first earliest texts to decipher the Sarva Amnaya. Sudhadhara Sāraihi Charana Yugalanta Nigalitehi Prapancham Sinchanti Punarapira Samnaya Mahasa. It is in here mentioned Rasamnaya. Rasa is always for number 6, considering the 6 in the Pakasastriya Rasa. Rasamnaya Mahasa. So this is 6 different amnayas are mentioned here in correlation to 6 chakras. And then there is like in Nepal, I've seen many images of these 6 amnayas deciphered in the 6 chakras and the deities installed there. The same way, we have the yantra, Chaturbhi Sri Kanthaihi mentioned there. And then you have the foundationally, the tantric system in Soundaryalaharī is of Śrīvidyā, but not in isolation of the tradition of Kubjika. Unfortunately, Kubjika tradition is not in its heydays. Very few Kubjika sadhakas are alive today, and many of the texts are not even edited, translated. I've even started Vimarsha Foundation to reach out to a wider community to discuss some of these esoteric shastras that my gurus in Varanasi and Nepal shared with great love. But in here, so if I give you the last one, a couple examples to relate to Sarvamnaya and the Kubjika sadhana, is the Sadhanaya Sambhava Vidya explained in many contexts like Chitaushat Panchasad, Dishamadika Panchasad Dake, or Maha Samvartagno, there's Samvarta Maṇḍalī, Samvarta Bhairava. I recently composed a poetry on the prayers of Samvarta Bhairava. So Samvarta Maṇḍalante Kramapada Nihita Nanda Shakti Subhima Srishtinyāye Chatuskam Takulakulagatam Panchakam Chanya Shatikam. This is how the Kubjika Mata Manthana Bhairava, these Kubjika texts begin, and Soundaryalaharī hints at that again and again. And in the highest absolute form, we have all the 6 Sambhava Vidyas from the Kubjika tradition mentioned, suggested in the verses, like a Pareshwara starting 34 to 36. We have the Vicheshwara in 37, Hamseshwara the same way 38, Samvarteshwara in 39, Deepeshwara in 40, and Navatmeshwara in verse 41. That is how in the Muladhara chakra going, this is, of course, you all know, it starts from top to bottom, and Gandharva Tantra does the same thing. Most texts I'm familiar with go that way from our own lineage, from our own tradition. And then the foundation, then, if you are initiate in the system, you would know that Navatma Bhairava is associated with the Kubjika, of course, and the Sadhanaya Sambhava Vidya is associated within the tradition of Kubjika. So this is one of the foremost texts that integrates Kubjika sadhana with the Tripurāsundarī, but that is its suggested heart, the most esoteric heart of the Tantra. But it is open, that esoteric Kubjika aspect is covered in the external layers of the tantric sadhana of Kameshwari, and that is covered in the external layer of other Kamya sadhanas in each of the verses that come, that one accomplishes siddhis of this or that. And that is covered by yet another layer of the poetic expression. And even in poetic expression, there is this dhvani that is covered. And then you first see the literal meaning. And then you, if you are fortunate, then you go to Lakshana. So this is the book that one should not read one time, but should read every day. And always with the open mind that no understanding, no limits to understanding is there, that no matter how much I think I know, there is always something that will surprise me. That there is always something new that I will see if the grace of Saraswati comes to me, that will allow me to see yet another hidden dimension to the text. So thank you so much for bringing to this conversation, this such a wonderful, amazing, exceptional Shastra to public awareness. And I'm fortunate to be here with you to share a few words. And of course, you know, it's not about showing of how much we can discuss. One verse we should have like just the entire sabha, and only single verse, and maybe then we will do the just to, maybe then at least we'll do the just to how much we know, not just to the text, but at least that will be enough time to share our own depth, not the depth of the Shastra, but at least what we can share of this text. Thank you so much.